Way. Again, Mike Anderson here from American Independent Marketing. We appreciate y'all making your time available here. Make sure we get a little more volume on this. I'm glad you could join us here today. A couple laundry things. Most of you that have been on our webinars are not going to find this unfamiliar. We do have everybody in lecture mode, which means that you're muted right now. We will take questions at the end. We use the mute feature so that we get a good quality recording, and we're going to get that processed, get it uploaded to our website. Should be available to you sometime early in the afternoon. And a quick reminder that our next webinar is next week on the 24th, and we are going to be giving you a look at LifeSecure's new product in California. Another, let's just say, a rare, great opportunity in California, as most of you down there know. Difficult state to work with, but we're excited to have that opportunity. So we are going to talk for the next few minutes about cracking the code. We dug in deep to the software, and we're going to touch on that in a minute here, but we dug in deep to come up with some ideas on things that you can use to keep Mutual of Omaha affordable for your clients. Two things hyper important to keep in mind when you think about that. First of all, it's important just to have those conversations. All right, so that's number one. Number two, this is not intended to be an all-inclusive list. As you'll see here, there are a lot of different ways to attack this. Spend some time with the software, get comfortable with an approach that you feel good about talking to folks about, and that way you're set to initiate that conversation process. So a number of different advantages come along with a carrier like Mutual of Omaha. We used to summarize it by saying it's the best combination of carrier flexibility, or product flexibility, and carrier stability in the market. And that still holds, but we wanted to summarize it with some other information here. If you've been on my webinars, you know that I'm not somebody that reads a lot of the slides. So I'm going to allow you to take a couple minutes and dig in here. Important in that middle bullet there, number one in brokerage, that's the 8th straight, that's ocho, 8 straight years that Mutual of Omaha has been the number one carrier in the brokerage market, okay? They are an industry leader. It's a name that everybody knows, which is advantageous. I tell folks all the time, and I'm in the age group that's buying long-term care, that the Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom show back with legendary Marlon Perkins was one of 2 television shows that was on in virtually every household in America on Sunday night. Everybody was watching it. Everybody was familiar with the old Mutual of Omaha jingle about people that you could count on when the going got tough, okay? And there's still people that your clients are going to be able to count on when the going gets tough. And for those of you that are out there in Washington, this is going to become really important to you very quickly. The Washington State Long-Term Care Trust has kind of swung around, and it's positioned like we thought it was going to be. If you aren't familiar with it, you'll be getting calls from our team, Anthony, Nick, Don, Patty, myself, talking about this and encouraging you to get yourself positioned to take advantage of a situation where 4.2 million employees in the state of Washington are going to have to make a decision about long-term care, okay? We want to position you to be able to have those conversations with folks. So we've got that coming up. Some technology advantages that come along with working with AIM, working with Mutual of Omaha. One of those is technology advantages. This is the best software in the market. I'm going to drag it over here and let you take a look at it. You can download this, and I'll give you the link here in a second. It's not interactive, but it's very intuitive. And it's the kind of thing that will captivate your client and hold their attention when you're talking to them. And as you're making different changes, as you'll see here, the premium changes immediately. You don't have to hit calculate or switch or any of those other kinds of things. And it allows you to give them a summation of everything that's easy to process. We've had this available now for 3 versions of the product. It's still every bit as popular as it was when we first brought it out, Important to note, if you have a version of this on your desktop now that you're working with and it's not version 3.66, you want to go out to this website. If you're not getting the software is current notification there, you want to go out to the website noted here and download the new version. Mutual's also got a really nice, easy to work with e-app that's available off the Mutual of Omaha website. And we built a pending application status system that's part of our YAIM website that's available to the agents that are appointed with us to help them track their business. So we've got a number of different technology advantages that we're making available to you, and we're glad to be able to do that. All right, so concerned with rising premiums, what should you do? Well, like I said, we investigated at some length, and we came up with a number of different ways. We're calling it cracking the code, all right? A number of different ways that you can go about getting the price point for your clients to a location that they are comfortable with moving forward. And that's really what it comes down to. And as we're looking at all of this stuff, keep in mind that even with the rate basis change that's happened in most of the states, I think we're probably down to less than 10 now overall that haven't changed. Okay, within the space of that rate basis change, we haven't gone very far away from sort of my core theme, which is that long-term care is a penny on the dollar proposition. Even with the changes, it's maybe a penny and a half on the dollar. So it's an extremely affordable opportunity for your clients. So we're going to look at, again, not to read slides, but we're going to look at short and fat, which has been something that we've worked with a lot. And then we're going to give you some options, what we're calling in version 2.0 with that, and then kind of a starting formula to help you get premiums down. But the number one thing that we want to make sure that you're doing is just having the conversations. I want to make sure that we got everything going here. Good. All right. Anyway, number one thing we want to make sure that you're doing is having the conversations, okay? If we're not doing that, we're not doing our jobs, plain and simple. All right, so this is a comparison of what we call the long skinny versus the short fat. And the idea here is this is what it was looking like when they did the rate refresh. The first group of rate refresh states was way back in September, okay? So when we did that, this is what it looked like here. So hang on for a second. Always got to have somebody that's weighing in with a question. So let's just see what this is about. So, well, if you're not getting audio, it's because you want to redial back in on your end, because I know I'm not muted here and nobody else is running in to tell me that we don't have audio. So I think it's probably a question or an issue on the other end. So back to this. All right. So anyway, this is just one of several different ways that you can go about it, but it kind of contrasts the old long skinny where you had a longer benefit period and a shorter monthly max, and comparing it with the short fat where you've got the bigger, more robust monthly max and a shorter benefit period. It's important to note, okay, when you get to a point where you got a policy max and these two are the same, all right, it's not about a length of time. In the old days, we used to talk about monthly amount times months equals pool. Well, that's not the case anymore. It's not about months. You can select any, not necessarily any pool, but you have a wide range of pool options, excuse me, that you're able to grab from. All right. And again, none of this was included to suggest that it's the be all end all on this. However, just one way of looking at it. We get some dissension on the 50% assisted living situation. Depending on the state that you're in most cases, the assisted living is going to be the least expensive of the three ways to go about it. And it's not a mandate that you use it, just a way to start the process. It's important to note as we're going along here, we're talking about a married couple that are age 60, standard health, and we've got a 90-day elimination period. All right. Okay. And as we went along, one of the things we found out really quickly was the The 3-year benefit period, which is the most popular, that was impacted significantly. So that's, if you stay with that, you're going to see some pricing bumps there. And the 3% compound inflation rider was also impacted. But that's okay, because for those of you that have been devotees of the Mutual of Omaha product along the way, you know that we created quarter point increments that give you the option to go down to 2.5 or 2 or even 1.5% for the inflation with the buy-up built to it. And so we gave you a lot of different ways that you could go about this and get away from the bigger bump here with the 3% compound. So as we're doing this, we added in this idea of short fat 2.0, and we got a little help from Inspector Clouseau over there in terms of different ways to go about doing it. And again, I'm not a guy who reads the slides, but what we were trying to do is keep them in the ballpark of this 1 or 2 pennies per dollar, on the dollar cost issue here. Important to note that a big piece of conversations, particularly when you're looking at 3% compound, a big piece of those conversations is the idea that 3% means everything's going to double in 25 years. Your clients, your prospects tend to fixate on that, okay? And in fixating on it, that's one of the things that they remember coming out of that, all right? And so by giving them the $10,000 starting benefit, you are taking what I call the intermediate situation out of play. All right. What I mean by intermediate is if something happens between the day they buy the policy and that 25-year thing, nobody really knows for sure how much benefit they've got. By starting them with 10 grand and not worrying so much about the inflation rider, you take yourself out of a situation where they're thinking, okay, well, in 25 years, we're going to have X. Well, boom, something happened in year 6. What do we have now? Well, you give them that 10 grand, they got a big chunk of what they're going to need for a long period of time, and it's available right away. Okay. This is kind of a closer look at where we were before versus where we are now. Again, keeping in mind that it's a 60-year-old couple. As you can see, there were some areas that had significant bumps. With regard to couples premium in particular, it did go up, no question about that. But it's important to remember before you panic, the product had been on the market for almost 8 years at the point in time when the rate refresh was brought into place. If you go back to 2008, 2010, carriers were refreshing their products every 30 to 36 months. So the mutual product was probably double due to have a new set of rates going forward, not an in-force rate increase, but a new set of sale rates going forward. And that was a big part of the decision that they made to move forward. Okay, so long, skinny versus short, fat 2.0. Okay, and this is one of several options that we brought forth that we wanted you to have a chance to take a look at. And again, you max out that monthly benefit up to 10 grand, and even without inflation, with that $500,000 benefit, this is super affordable for that 60-year-old couple with that $4,500 premium. Okay, and before you panic and start pumping the brakes on the no inflation rider, think about how many situations you've been in where you have set somebody up with a greater than a $5,000 a month starting benefit. And then think about how many times you've done a $4,500 or a $4,000 monthly benefit. Okay, same thing with the policy max. All right, and when you really take a long look in the mirror before you protest and throw your hands up, oh my God, this is terrible. Okay, when you really look at that, what you're going to see is, in the greatest majority of the cases, you can make a case. Excuse the duplication there. You can make a case that you've positioned your clients better in the intermediate time frame by giving them the max, that $10,000 monthly and that $500,000 pool. All right. because unless you were going to sell them 5,000 out of a pool of 250 and then put 3% on it, they're better off. And again, the intermediate risk is off the table. And that's an important thing, because you hear stories all the time about health situations that happen early mid 60s, or somebody that retires and then at 67 something happens. Well, having the 10 out of the 500 right here with a lower premium and no inflation rider, that intermediate risk is off the table for this 60-year-old female. All right, that's an important position to be in. And as I've said countless times, less than a penny on the dollar for this coverage. Less than a penny on the dollar. All right. Short fat option 2, different way to do it. Also, we took the single females because they're the highest group price-wise. And so we felt like if we could show you that this works with the most expensive segment of who we target, that the rest of it's going to be easy for you. Okay, it's a little more than a penny on the dollar, which isn't the end of the world, but it's important to note. But still, that $8,000 benefit, that policy max of $350, okay, those are going to resonate significantly with them. That's going to be important. So hold on for a second here, see what the next question's about. Okay. All right, we'll talk about partnership in a second. All right, so this is our number 2 option. The question was, and I'll tackle this one now, all right? The question was, does it impact the Washington State Partnership? Okay, and the answer is yes, it does impact the Washington State Partnership, all right? But you got to understand when you enter into this, okay? The Washington State Partnership was designed to work in a situation where agents were able to sell at the cost curve. Okay, and the cost curve in the state of Washington is probably $7,000 a month. The simple truth of the matter is that agents can't or don't sell at the cost curve. We get apps in every day that come in at $4,500 a month out of a pool of 165. Okay, it comes in at $5,000 a month out of a pool of 180. So, is it more important to protect the clients with this, or to adhere to, frankly, an outdated concept with the partnership? Because if you're selling them $4,500 a month, knowing that the cost curve is $7,000, that means the day they buy the policy, $2,500 every month is going to come out of their pocket. And that's based on today's numbers. That could change in a way that's not optimal for the clients, okay? But $4,500 is going to be with the policy, and $2,500 is out of pocket. And that's about $30,000 a year. That's almost $100,000 on a 3-year claim, and that's on top of living expenses and such for the spouse, who may not be affected personally by the health issues, but is continuing to try to live. Still has to pay for the condo and a car, and and any number of different things. So I'm not going to stop anymore and deal with that. So we're taking that off the grid. So don't get hung up on the partnership. It's a great conversation starter, and what it was intended to be back in 2008 when it came into existence, and where it's gravitated to now are significantly different and kind of significantly off the path. So I wouldn't fixate on that, because the bottom line is the $8,000 a month is going to position your clients really well to deal with the absolute cost, which means they're not going to churn through the personal assets in the same manner and fashion that they would churn through them in a reduced situation like we're talking about over here with the long skinny. Okay, that 4,500, you're going to get plowed under by the $2,500 to $3,000 to $3,500 a month that people are having to pay out of pocket. To give you an idea, because I do have some firsthand knowledge of this, my mom was in an assisted living facility north of Seattle for the last 2.5 years of her life, $7,800 a month for her care. $7,800. Okay, so that would mean that in this scenario here, that would mean that $3,300 based on today would be coming out of pocket which is going to blow to smithereens this idea of asset disregard farther down the path. All right, so a different option one here. This is the married couple age 55. All right. And the slides will be available for the appointed agents when we, as part of our follow-up calls that the team is going to be doing. We'll be in contact with everybody within the next day or so, later today or tomorrow. Everybody that was on the call, answer questions that you might have and help you get the contracting started to add Mutual of Omaha to your lineup of carriers. We've also got other long-term care options that we can touch on as well. Okay. So again, the penny on the dollar thing, not the be all end all, but it's a good touch point. It's something that everybody can get their heads wrapped around. And even with a shorter benefit period with 2 years, still having $500,000 there takes that intermediate risk off the table. And that intermediate risk is something that's real. You hear, as I was just saying before, you hear about people, somebody that's healthy. Many of you that have been in calls have heard me talk about my close personal friend who had an ischemic stroke at the age of 63 and had to medically retire, crack open the 401k because they didn't respond to entreaties to consider long-term care. Anyway, crack open the 401k to cover costs of care and other things like that. And basically now, by virtue of not having long-term care, they subsist on a relatively small Social Security payment and the remnants of an inheritance that had come through a few years ago. So it's it's worthwhile. So another different way to tackle that. All right. So where do you start with this? Where do you start? All right. A good idea is to keep in mind that there is no harm in moving that inflation protection down. One of the things that I haven't talked about up till now is the guaranteed buy-up that the custom product has available. Okay. It's right here on the software. Inflation protection buy-up included. It's built into the price. And what the buy-up means is that until your clients reach the age of 75, every year on the policy anniversary, they're going to be offered the chance to buy more inflation, to buy up from 1.5 to 2, or from 2 to 2.5, or 2 to 3, whatever it is. They're going to be offered that option every year until they reach the age of 75. Okay, so they can start with a choice now in February of 2021, and then make another choice again in February of 2023 or 2025, whenever it is. But multiple times they're going to have the opportunity to buy more inflation and to do so without evidence of insurability, without underwriting. Okay, that is significant. And Mutual's the only carrier in the market that makes that available on an ongoing basis. There's some future purchase option and things like that, but you have to execute that option a certain number of times to keep it alive. Okay, the guaranteed buy-up here, that's going to stay put. It's going to be in the product and available every year until your client reaches the age of 75. And also important to note, figure out a number here and a number here that work for you. You saw some ideas that we've got, different ways that you can go about doing it. I think the 10,000 and the $500,000 with no inflation, we call that the front load. You're going to see that get really, really, really popular really fast, just because it's an easy way for everybody to make sure, number one, everything's on the table. They know exactly what they've got. There's no calculations that need to be done. And it's a great way to manage the premium. Okay. And if you want to keep the buy-up in play, all you got to do is tweak it a little bit and give them that 1% option. That means by having the 1% inflation option, it means they've got the opportunity to buy more each policy anniversary until they reach the age of 75. So appreciate everybody attending. I'm going to open things up here in just 1 second for questions. As is always the case, we ask that if you don't have questions when we unmute everybody here, if you would be so kind as to mute yourself. And that's so that we don't have tea kettles whistling, and all these other different kinds of things. So we're going to try to unmute everybody. I know a lot of you are self-muted, and we do appreciate that. If you got a question, go ahead and unmute yourself, and we'll try to do things in kind of an organized fashion here. Let's see the typed in questions. All right. What do we got here? There is no limited pay premium with Mutual of Omaha, so the refresh design there and the question on limited pay, that doesn't apply. Not sure, the agent that asked the question about the beneficiary in California, that would involve ROP. If they move out of state, that doesn't matter. If you've got more California specific questions, go ahead and give us a call when the webinar is over. So, all right, anybody else out there with questions? And we do appreciate everybody making their time available here today. It looks like most everybody is individually muted, which is really nice from a standpoint of being courteous to your internet neighbors. Quick reminder, next webinar is next week on February 24th. New LifeSecure product that's available in California. We'll spend some time. I think David Coghill from LifeSecure will be with us on the call to take some time and review that new option. Those of you that work in California know that that's not an everyday occurrence in terms of having something available there. So, there's a question here about more solves based on benefit or premium. The truth of the matter is it's in the middle somewhere there, okay? And it's going to depend on the conversation, the initial conversation that you have with folks. It's important to, I think, to retain the idea of the penny-ish on the dollar concept, okay? But in listening to the conversation that you have with folks, you're going to be able to make a determination about whether you should gear it towards benefit or premium. So it literally is an individual case conversation. Can the buy-up work in reverse, decrease the percentage? The answer is yes. That's actually one of the advantages that this product makes available, is you have the ability in a situation where something goes, something changes in a way that's not favorable, they can take and they can move down from 2% to 1.5% or even 1%. And they could drop it if they wanted to, but they don't want to drop that if they can avoid it. So quoting software is available. If you're an appointed agent, we can help you with that. All right. There is home care that's built in all the examples. Okay. Everything that we did was built with 100% home care. Some of it we fiddled around with the assisted living and dropped that down to 50% because, as I said at the beginning, it's the least expensive of the options. So we took the opportunity to do that. And if that's a particular bugaboo for you, don't get hung up on it. If you feel like your clients need to have 100% ALF, it isn't going to make that much of a difference for you in the big picture. So, all right, let me get back and kind of go sequentially so I don't miss anybody's question here. All right, we covered partnership, covered limited pays not being in there, covered beneficiary situation, home care, yes. Okay. Cash options always available. Good question there. All right, the 25% cash option that Mutual of Omaha's got now, it's available regardless of whether you go long and skinny, short and fat, whatever it is that you do. If you do the front load, whatever, they're still going to have that 25% of the home care benefit available as a cash option. And I can tell you, we can tell you from firsthand experience, that's going to be a really, really popular option for your client at claim time. They may not realize how valuable it is right now, okay, but it will be valuable for them when they're on claim time, okay? Underwriting guidelines are largely the same. We expect there'll be a change coming up here probably right at the beginning of the summertime. That's usually when they revisit and revise. We don't have any simplified issue options here with Mutual. Okay. There's a question about making sure the quotes are short fat. That's based on how you configure them. You'll get that part figured out. Not sure about the question on death toll for elderly on long-term care. One of the things that nobody knows for sure right now is where the long-term care industry is going to be in 5 or 10 years as a result of what's happened with COVID. One of the things that's very likely to happen is a significant study chartered by the World Health Organization where they actually study people who have had COVID and survived it, so to speak, and get a feel for what it's done to kidneys and liver and lungs and heart and things like that, which none of which they know right now. So there's some down the line things. I wouldn't stop doing what you're doing because it may end up making, probably will end up making long-term care even more valuable than it is right now. But where we're at with that right now, we don't particularly know. The people that have passed away on that, I don't think it's going to have any real effect on what's going on in the long-term care market on a daily basis. Assisted living and nursing home is not available without nursing home on Mutual's product. There are other products with other carriers out there that can do that, but this is a long-term care policy, and as such, it's got to be comprehensive, which means all 3 levels of care. Okay, we're going to be addressing the new Washington state law farther down the road, but I will tell you, if you're a Washington agent, this is going to be the single best long-term care opportunity that you've ever had, all right? Because you've got 4.2 million prospects who are employees in the state of Washington, and all of them are going to have to make some type of a decision about long-term care. Don't want to get into the specifics here, okay? We'll talk about that more. We will be doing a webinar specific to that for agents that work in Washington, but just keep in mind, huge opportunity. If I was a Washington agent right now, I would sit down with a spouse or a partner, significant other, whoever, and start making a list of everybody they know and those spouses, and everybody that I know and their spouses. And there's a list of 75 people to start the long-term care conversation with, because those are the people that you're going to want to have a conversation with. The beauty of this is those 4.2 million people, you don't have to buy leads for it. They're all leads. Okay, anybody that you know who is an employee at Amalgamated Widget or Boeing or Microsoft or any other place, okay, they're going to have to deal with this. Huge, huge, huge opportunity. I appreciate the question, and as I said, we will be talking about it a little bit more farther down the path. All right, what do we got here? This is a little bit longer question. Let me take a minute and read this here. Oh, good question. The 90-day elimination period, okay? You know, and the question is how they can take care of themselves during the 90-day elimination period. I've believed for a long time this is a largely ignored piece of this puzzle, okay? Well, a couple things. First of all, the cash can be used in the initial transition to going on care, okay? But it's not going to make the elimination period go away. At some point in time, the family's going to have to deal with that 90-day cost. And let's say for easy math, they need to be thinking along the lines that they're going to have to deal with a $25,000 out-of-pocket expense. Could be a little higher, could be a little lower, but that gives them the ball to fixate on, okay? So they need to be thinking about that. There's no other product option that's consistently available out there that allows them to address this. At some point, they will have to deal with that. Now, home care waiver is available at a 16% load, but when you're trying to move the chess pieces around to get it to an affordability standpoint, adding 16% might not be the best way to go. Now, the presumption is, and y'all have heard me talk about this a bunch, that a big piece of this is protecting retirement work that's been done, 401k, 403b, IRA, all of it, okay? So there is money in there, and if you can limit what they have to take out of that retirement pot to a $20,000 or $25,000 number overall, that's a pretty good outcome, because the carrier is going to be standing there waiting to take the ball after 90 days on the calendar and move forward. Okay, but there isn't a magic bullet for that 90-day EP except for the idea of awareness. You don't want to scare them away from it, but you want them to understand that at some point, in all likelihood, they will have to deal with that, and it is going to be, 20 to 25. So anyway, great question on that, Joe. Appreciate you joining in. All right, anybody else? What do we got here? It won't work with existing move policies because you can't make the changes. Once the client activates the LTC payments, does the inflation rider continue? I'm not sure what the question means on that, Joe. Give us a call. not sure what the new sale with compensation. So, all right, we're going to give it one last shot at questions. We do appreciate everybody making their time available. We'll process this recording, as I said. We'll upload it to the website. Should be up there this afternoon for you to review. The team will be making follow-up calls to everybody that's been on the webinar. Answer questions that you might have, get contracting set up for you going forward, because you're going to want to be positioned to take advantage of this. And remember, all these other things aside, okay, the need for this hasn't changed. You've heard me say this a bunch of times if you're on the webinars here. Not, setting the Washington thing aside, this is in all the other states. 90% of the people that you know that are in your book of business, that are your neighbors and your friends at your country club or your church, wherever you go, 90% of those people have never had somebody offer to help them protect their retirement plan. You can be the first simply by reaching out and offering to help. That's a significant offer at the very beginning, and it will position you to be able to help more people more often than any other thing that you do. Okay, 90%. Don't forget that. Okay, that's the key piece of every single thing that we do with long-term care. 90% of everybody you know needs to have that conversation. So the question is, are you going to reach out to them and offer to help? Because it's not about selling long-term care. It's about offering to help them protect their retirement. The long-term care piece is plug and play. Depending on health and financial viability, it's plug and play at the end. The first piece of that, the most important piece of that, is the offer to help. All right, I'm done with my soapbox. Thanks for attending, everybody. Super appreciate your time. We'll be back with you next week, like I said. Same bat time, same bat channel here on the 24th at 9 a.m. Thanks. Going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Talk to you all soon. Take care.